It's not what you know, but who you know. That's meant to be a bonus for the well-connected. But for Fiona Woolf, the lawyer appointed to head the inquiry into historic child abuse, it's anything but. Can she, currently the Lord Mayor of London, really do that job given to her because one of the people she'll have to investigate is practically a next-door neighbour? And with lawyers and victims planning to challenge her appointment, can she stay on? Here's Chris Cook, and the latter part of his report does contain some flash photography.
Conwood Street, Highbury Crescent, Elwood Street. The names of apparently unremarkable streets in Islington, in North London. But to some of those who once lived in children's homes here, they were the scenes of horror. Demetrius Panton was abused in the borough's Elwood Street home in the 1970s.
Have I secured comprehensive closure? Of course not. It's always there, it's always in the back of your mind what happened. But have I managed to be able to function as a well-adjusted human being? I'd like to think so. But it's a long process.
For abuse survivors across the country, a new national inquiry into child abuse gave them hope that the powerful people who failed them could finally be held to account. Many have concerns that have focused on decisions made by Lord Britton, who was Home Secretary in the 1980s. The question is how he responded to allegations of abuse. So his conduct will be scrutinised by Fiona Woolf, the Lord Mayor of London. She's a lawyer who's leading the inquiry. But there are fresh concerns about whether she is the right person for that job. Fiona Woolf and Lord Britton both live on this chic street near to Westminster, about 130 metres apart. In addition to being neighbours, they also know each other socially. They've been to dinner at each other's houses 5 times. There are other connections too. For example, they both sit on a board together. And for some people, that relationship is just a bit too close.
Miss Woolf is a lawyer, so she'll understand this, that not only must justice be done, but more importantly, it has to be seen to be done. And I think the fact that she has this strong acquaintance with Mr. Britton would cast suspicion on the workings of the panel.
Islington's old children's homes are gone, some of them replaced by offices for child protection workers. Newsnight's been speaking to children's services officials elsewhere who say that the single most important factor in the inquiry's success will be the support of survivors. And they're concerned that Ms. Woolf doesn't have it.
Victim survivors are saying to us on a daily basis what is going on. Why are we appointing, why is the government appointing somebody that we have no faith, no confidence and no trust in? And again, not her personally as Fiona Woolf, but her background, her experience.
If Ms. Woolf were to resign, it would be embarrassing to the government. The inquiry has already lost one chair because of a perceived conflict of interest. Elizabeth Butler-Sloss resigned earlier this year because she would have had to scrutinise her own late brother's decisions from his tenure as Attorney General in the 1980s.
I think you'll always be able to find somebody who says there's some reason why whoever is appointed can't do it. But the fact is we know what the objections are. They're out in the open. Therefore, people will be alert to them. She will certainly be alert to them. She can do this without fear or favour, and I think she should now just get on with her job. I think it's common sense now that you don't go through one person after another with people finding objections to highly respectable, very, very experienced members of the judiciary.
The government is standing by Ms. Woolf, who tonight was out on mayoral duty at the City Guildhall. A finery probably won't help persuade survivors that she's the right person to challenge the establishment. Without their support, her inquiry may not succeed.
Peter McKelvey is a former child protection manager who was the first to raise concerns that high-ranking politicians were involved in child abuse more than 20 years ago. And he joins us this evening from France. Peter McKelvey, what do you make of the appointment of Fiona Woolf?
Good evening. What I actually think is irrelevant. It's what survivors are saying to me and have been saying for some time. Trust is a major element with anyone who's been abused, And there is just no trust in the whole process from the appointment of Butler Sloss up to the appointment of Fiona Woolf. Because the one thing survivors wanted this time was a completely independent inquiry, not led by anybody who they perceived to be a member of the establishment.
Yet, given her record as a lawyer of some standing for many decades, she's very well regarded as a professional and able person. What is it that they do not want to accept?
Even before the issues of any link she may or may not have had with Lord Britton, the appointment of someone who was the Lord Mayor of the City of London was a very strong message to survivors, and you've got to listen to what survivors say, that it was a member of the establishment, someone that they certainly didn't want. Nothing personal against Fiona Woolf herself. It's the role she played as the Lord Mayor. In reality, however, to have somebody stewarding what may be a very complex process that may require somebody who is at a level of seniority in one or other professions, particularly the legal profession, isn't the reality they're very likely to be, for want of a better phrase, a member of the establishment? Can that really be avoided? I think that there must be a significant number of people that would be acceptable by survivors who have no links that would concern them. There must be a significant number of people that could be chosen from without making this appointment to survivors quite an insult. And yet, this inquiry is about trying to uncover what institutions got wrong, whether they tried to cover things up. For good or for ill, perhaps it's the case that many victims may always feel their individual cases are never completely resolved. I must apologise, I'm having slight difficulty in hearing you, but if I understand the question to be, the main priority for survivors of the worst form of abuse by the most powerful people is that they will be believed. They have great difficulty in coming forward, great difficulty in talking to the police, and a lot of survivors have told me that they wanted to talk directly to the type of independent inquiry that they were asking for, an independent inquiry that they believed over 150 MPs were campaigning for on their behalf, and it hasn't turned out to be the inquiry, the Hillsborough type inquiry that they were asking for. So indeed, so then, the problem here is about the process rather than Fiona Woolf herself, because this inquiry does not have plans to take individual testimonies in that way. It's very, very much about the process. It's a process that the survivors that I'm talking to are saying that they really do not want to be part of. And that is so, so vital. Without survivors, an independent inquiry would be quite meaningless, in my opinion. Even if somebody else was to take on the inquiry, and Fiona Woolf is a member of a panel of 9 people, could they have their confidence restored in the process, do you think, if someone else were to be in charge? I'm not the person to answer that. The obvious people to answer that are survivors, and it wouldn't take much difficulty to get a group of survivors in a room and for the Home Secretary to talk to them. It would be very, very easy to get a group of survivors together, survivors of abuse by powerful politicians. They'd be happy to speak. They'd be happy to speak in private, in confidence, to someone they could really trust. But there's a lack of trust with the Home Office in general, which goes back many, many decades, and that also has to be overcome. As things stand, however, Peter McKelvey, do you believe the victims you talk to will cooperate, or they will withdraw their support from this process? I really don't think that they will cooperate with this particular process at all, but you'd have to ask them directly. What I am hearing is that they are turning their level of confidence towards the police, and they're much more now focused on talking to the police, however difficult that'll be. Many of them have been through the process before. They've disclosed to the police before. They felt that for different reasons nothing's come of it. This time, the faith they had in an independent inquiry seems to have gone at the moment, and so their direct route is to the police. And perhaps in a way that is the best route anyway. Peter McKelvey, thanks so much for joining us. We must leave it there.